Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I have another book review for you, and it is The Instrumentalist by Harriet Constable. This was a Christmas present to me from Matt's parents, Bev and Dave. It was a book that I think his dad said was recommended at Mr. B's Emporium, which is a fantastic bookshop in Bath. Highly recommend going there. Wonderful place, you will not be disappointed. It heavily reminded me of Hamnet, which, if you've seen my review on Hamnet, I think it's above me now, was not my favourite read. This one I personally enjoyed more, partly I think because I didn't know this history, whereas for Hamnet I did know about Shakespeare's son, so it was kind of, you know the ending, but it was very beautifully written. This one is maybe a bit more slow paced, so a little bit less easy to read. However, I enjoyed it more and found the history more fascinating. As always with my book reviews, I'll read you guys the blurb first. Before we get into that, don't forget, if you like what you see, to subscribe to this channel. Your continued support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. I will be remembered. My life will mean something. Anna Maria may have no name, no fortune, no family, but she has her ambition and her talent. Her best hope lies in her teacher, Antonio Vivaldi. Soon she is his star pupil. But as Anna Maria's star rises, not everyone is happy, because Anna Maria's shining light threatens to eclipse that of her mentor. She will leave her mark, whatever it takes. Her story will be heard. Inspired by the women in the shadows of some of history's greatest masterpieces, The Instrumentalist is an unforgettable tale of ambition, exploitation, and defiance, set against the dark and dazzling backdrop of 18th century Venice. Look at this map of Venice. How beautiful is that? And it's blue inside with silver foiling on the side there. It is a very pretty book, and it does have a lot of reviews. On the front we have enthralling, passionate, vivid, a marvel. That's from Kieran Millward Hargrave. And on the back we have more praise. It was selected as an Observer debut novelist for 2024. Had me spellbound from start to finish. That's from Emma Stonex. A story of musical rivalry which will completely capture your imagination. That's Elodie Harper. I was swept away by this searing portrait of ambition and betrayal, Elizabeth McNeil. An immersive, impassioned tale full of colour and sound, Observer. A fascinating story of music, ambition and womanhood, Charmaine Wilkinson. And viscerally transports you to 18th century Venice and revives the lost story of a phenomenal woman, Harper's Bazaar. So this is a historic fiction, and it is exploring the forgotten history of female composers and musicians throughout history, because we all know Vivaldi, we all know his music. However, how much of his music is actually his music? Now, I'm not belittling Vivaldi. They were obviously an amazing composer, a fantastically masterful violinist. However, history has only remembered the men who were these things and forgotten the women who were also these things and were also taking part in this. Vivaldi may not have been Vivaldi and become as famous without some of these women. And that goes for a lot of history, and historians are only just now realizing their mistake. The inequality of gender has caused a lot of historic falsities, such as the idea that only men fought. All the Viking bodies they found in the UK, they presumed were men if they were buried with weapons. They were not. They were women as well. So women did fight. Gendered history. They've also found, obviously, scientists were not allowed to release papers if you were a woman. Some scientists were women who released their papers in their husbands' names. We've remembered the wrong person. Or you had two scientists who married and worked together, but all of their experiments could only be published in the man's name, even if the man wanted to have it also in their wife's name, or a man wanted it to be in their female friend name. They had to use the man's name. This is a historic fact. I'm sorry. Inequality has screwed up history, and they're only now fixing that. And that's sort of what this book is about. It's about an orphanage in Venice, which I didn't know existed. And in this orphanage, they study music. And these women were actually in a very famous orchestra of women who often had missing limbs, had malformities. They were abandoned at birth at this orphanage and raised to be musicians. And if they were good enough, they'd end up in this orchestra. And this orchestra was used by people like Vivaldi to play their music and ended up also composing with these people. It's fascinating. And if you do read this book, please read the end of it where our author Harriet Constable talks about the history, because that really makes it hit home to what this book is about. I'll admit there are some better written books and historical fictions out there, but this one just really stuck with me. It might be partly because I am a female musician, because I am a composer, I'm in a band, we compose music, and because I studied music and therefore saw that it was all male composers that we were discussing. Even in film score, which is something I'm really heavily interested in, is mainly men. Why? But anyway, enough of the overall explanation of this book. I will now go into my quotes from this book and then go into my overall review. I will warn you if there are any major spoilers, but given the history of it, yeah. Page 42. A maestro cannot worry about insignificances like other people's feelings. They must prioritize sound, expression, perfecting each note. This is sort of the idea that as a maestro, and a maestro is someone who has mastered their instrument, you have to forget about other people. Music is the only thing you can think about, but this sort of teaching is also about isolating that person, which is not a good thing. Page 105. Choosing a violin is like choosing a spouse. Musicians spend months making the right decision. They will return time and again to try out all our options and decide which one perfectly suits them. Now this is so true. A instrument, even if it is made by the same company, the same brand, the slightest difference in that instrument can make a huge difference. And I remember talking to a instrument seller, so in a music shop, and they were saying something they've noticed and find quite interesting is that if someone is they're still a musician, but someone who is playing for their own fun and is sometimes just because they like certain musicians, someone who generally has quite a bit of money, they come in and they buy the most expensive guitar, they come in and buy the famous guitar, the one-offs and things like that. Someone who comes in who is a musician, who is a paid musician, or someone who is composing music, someone who is teaching music, someone who plays for a living or playing is a part of them, they come in and play all the different choices in the shop and don't even look at the price. And quite often they don't buy these expensive ones. They just buy the one that fits them, which are often cheaper, sometimes battered, second-hand. It doesn't matter to the musician what this instrument is, what label is on it, any of that. It is how it plays. And I will admit, I am one of those people as well. However, I have a PRS electric guitar, and it's one of the cheaper ones. I've had it since high school. I love it. I've never been one to go off a price tag. But I did play Matt's cousin Tom, who is a fantastic, amazing guitarist. He went to uni and studied guitar. Tom Perrington. I don't even think he's got anything online, but if he does, look him up. One of the best guitarists I know. So good. And I did play his much more expensive PRS. It felt beautiful. It was so good to play. But anyway, going a bit off topic there. But it is so true. The feel of an instrument, there is so much more to it than just who made it, how it was made. It is a big decision to make and affects your playing. And some instruments that work for some musicians don't work for others. For example, my guitar playing is vastly different to my partner Matt's, and he is a better guitarist than me. My main instrument is piano keys, but he is far better than me. But our playing style does complement each other, but it is so different. I play a lot lighter than him. He bashes the guitar. He can't play my acoustic too much because my acoustic will ring out a bit. And to be honest, I've fallen a little bit out of love with my acoustic. I may be looking for another one at some point, but I don't have the funds or time to look yet. It is very personal, your instrument, and to change instrument is a big step for a musician. It is a part of your body. You don't want to touch another one. Page 192. This is a poem paragraph. Very cool. There are a few of these scattered throughout, and I need to find it in here because it's quite long, so do bear with me. The pluck of a tooth being pulled from a mouth, the squeak of a marmot laced with a chain, the slug of a drain being drenched of its muck, the cheer of the crowd by the tall shadow box, the clink of coins, one sold or a look, the whispers of tellers spewing fortune and luck, the rustle of seeds drifting out of wood baskets, the screams from the inmates in the bowels of the palace, the streak of a blade being sharpened against stone, the click of a lock as a man stumbles home. The captain follows the sound higher and higher until a spring breeze catches in the sails above his head. They become billowing silk, the finest ball gown he's ever seen. His sailors huff, muscles flexing against oars. He chuckles to himself. They will be there in record time. I just wanted to read that very last bit of that paragraph to show you how much the paragraph before is a poem. I just thought that was beautiful. And my final quote from this book is page 207. Female violinist. Anna Maria rereads the last line several times, then thuds down on her bed. So strange, she thinks, that Rosarel singled out her sex. If she is the most talented, let her be the most talented. If you are the most talented violinist, you should just be called the most talented violinist. Why should gender take part in this? And again, I have a reminder here to read the acknowledgements in this book. They are very important. Now for my overall review of The Instrumentalist by Harriet Constable. I wasn't sure at first. It reminded me of Hamnet, which I wasn't too keen on, and it is quite slow paced. However, it felt worth it in the end. By the end, I couldn't put it down. It feels like something that will stick with me. It's something that has taught me something about music history, about class, about society, about inequality, about genders, and told me a lot about female composers and their hidden pasts. Harriet Constable does play with time a little bit. There are some composers in this that would not have been around at the same time, but it is historical fiction. It is based on truth. She has done a lot of research, and I highly recommend it. So for my overall review, for enjoyment, I gave it 8 out of 10. Writing style, 8. Plot, 10. World building, 10. You really feel like you are in Venice. Characterization, 10. Representation, 10. And originality, 10. I gave this 4.75 stars out of 5. I do highly recommend it. If you enjoyed Hamnet, I think you will enjoy this. For me, it was just more meaningful than Hamnet. For me personally, the subject it tackles is a lot more meaningful and important to me. I adored it. Thank you, Dave and Bev, for picking this up. And that's it for this book review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed what you see. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so as soon as I upload, click that little bell down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post general bookish pictures as well as from my writing tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye!